All right, welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. We're going to talk a little bit about the Niners. Day one of free agency has begun. What have the Niners done? We'll talk about it right now. All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Happy March the 10th. The beginning of free agency officially begins on Wednesday. But as of 9 a.m. this morning, teams could talk to agents and deals are coming down. And even though they won't be official until Wednesday, they're being announced today. Somebody will probably back out at some point of a deal. But we are either way brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. So go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Mancini's Sleep World. Mancini's is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee. With a range of brands and price points with Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in-store at any of Mancini's locations, just use the code KRUG10 and you're going to save 10% off. That's a big chunk. KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. And thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Well, the 49ers have made their first signing in free agency. And if you had Luke Farrell of the Jacksonville Jaguars as the 49ers' first signing of free agency, come on down. And I'm not seeing anybody come on down because nobody had that. But the Niners' first addition is Jaguars blocking tight end Luke Farrell. He's agreed to terms with the 49ers. It's a 3-year contract for $20.2 million with $11 million guaranteed. This sounds like an awful lot of money for a team that can't afford to pay Dre Greenlaw and is going to battle like crazy to pay Brock Purdy. And we're ripping everybody, all these other bloated contracts, but you're giving a blocking tight end $11 million guaranteed. That seems excessive to me. He's from Perry, Ohio. He went to Ohio State, 6'5.5", 250 pounds, 33-inch arms, 9.25-inch hands. That's the Luke Farrell physical profile. If you said, well, tell me a little bit about this guy. He was a second team All Ohio Division IV selection in high school. He went to Perry High School. He was a 4-star recruit. He signed with the Buckeyes in 2016. He played in 8 games as a reserve his redshirt freshman year, caught 2 balls for 19 yards, and then became a bigger part of the offense in his sophomore year. He caught 20 balls his sophomore year, 1 touchdown in 14 games. He started all 14 games in 2019. He caught 7 balls for 119 yards and 2 scores. Started 8 games as a senior. Was honorable mention All Big Ten, but was barely used in the passing game. 5 catches for 37 yards and 1 touchdown. So he didn't really play very much as a receiver in college. And he's an inline tight end prospect. He's got good size. He's got decent strength. Lacked some consistency early in his career. Doesn't dazzle anybody with speed or athleticism. They'll throw him the ball in the flat every now and then. But he's considered to be a very good blocker. His role is to be kind of like the dirty work blocker. And he can create some pop in the run game. He's got some size and strength. He comes out of his stance with good pad level. So decent feel for positional blocking. He had 390 snaps this last year, 5th-round pick out of Ohio State. He's a pass blocking tight end. He blocked on 73.6% of his snaps. He was the number 3 graded PFF pass blocking tight end last season. Number 2 graded pass blocking tight end, or number 3 pass blocking tight end in 2024. 49 pass blocking reps last year for the Jaguars. Hasn't missed a game in 3 years. So ultimately, he's the Charlie Warner replacement. The Niners had Charlie Warner. This is, maybe a move that helps get George Kittle out in the pattern a little bit more. George Kittle, without Ayuk, they're going to need George Kittle to be a receiver. And that means they got to have a real strong inline blocker that will enable Kittle to get out and run routes, and get out in the pattern. So Luke Farrell, come on down, big-bodied tight end from Ohio State, and we'll see how it goes. So that was the big news of the day as far as the 49ers were concerned. Now, there were other Niner notes today, but before we hit that, why don't we hit some of the bigger NFL notes, or at least the ones that may be interesting to Niner fans. The Jaguars signed Nick Mullins today, 2 years, $6.5 million, $3 million guaranteed. He's the new backup to Trevor Lawrence. He goes from Minnesota to Jacksonville. So, and then the new Jags assistant coach, Grant Udinsky, came from Minnesota. So there's a connection there. The Seahawks have their new quarterback. It's Sam Darnold. The former Vikings starter finalized a deal today with Seattle. He gets 3 years worth $100 million to take over for Geno Smith. Darnold has been the proverbial favorite to be the Seahawk quarterback ever since they traded Geno to the Raiders a couple days ago for a third-round pick. DJ Reed, who a lot of people thought maybe would be headed to the 49ers in free agency. Nope. He's headed to the Detroit Lions instead. That should help the Lions secondary dramatically. The Rams brought back Jimmy Garoppolo. Mike Garafolo says Garoppolo's going to have to sign a 1-year deal to go back to L.A. Javon Kinlaw, the former Niner, goes to the Commanders. So there was some speculation that maybe he would join the Niners and rejoin Robert Saleh, but he goes to the Commanders. 3 years, $45 million deal for Kinlaw with $30 million guaranteed. Wow. That is a big, big chunk of money going to Kinlaw from Adam Peters. That is surprising. I got to admit, that's $30 million guaranteed for Javon Kinlaw, who really doesn't rush the passer, much more of a run defender, first and second down run defender. $30 million guaranteed. That just seems crazy. A lot of Niner fans wanted to see the Niners go sign Drew Dahlman, and the Bears signed him today. Making him the NFL's second highest paid center. He gets a 3-year deal for $42 million with $28 million guaranteed. How about that? Drew Dahlman gets less money guaranteed than Javon Kinlaw. That's crazy. Justin Fields signed a 2-year, $40 million deal with the New York Jets. He'll be their starting quarterback there, included in that deal is $30 million of guaranteed money. Cam Bynum, the former Cal Bear, who I thought would have been a perfect fit for the Niners at free safety, signs a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Colts. Josh Sweat joins the Cardinals and leaves the Eagles. So the Eagles lose Milton Williams to the Patriots and Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. 4-year deal for Sweat for $76.4 million. He was so good on Super Bowl Sunday. Gets $41 million guaranteed. So the Eagles do lose a couple of good players off their defensive front seven today. So that's good news. As far as other news that impacts the Niners, the Kansas City Chiefs signed Elijah Mitchell away from the Niners. He gets a 1-year deal for $3.5 million, which I'm very surprised at, considering he's been hurt quite a bit. But he never fumbles, and he's a solid NFL back, but it's a great draft for running backs. Seems like the wrong year to guarantee Elijah Mitchell $3.5 million, but the Chiefs did. The Chiefs also signed Jalen Moore. The former Niner backup offensive tackle gets 2 years, $30 million to be the new blindside protector for Mahomes. So that's interesting. I mean, he's never been a full-time starter in his career, and he gets 2 years and $30 million to go to Kansas City. So Jalen Moore leaves. maybe the most interesting note of the day, the 49ers have had conversations with, wait for it, Jameis Winston to be their backup quarterback. This is according to Josina Anderson. The Niners and the Chargers are both in talks with Winston on a potential backup role. The New York Giants potentially could be in the mix as well. Winston's 31. He's played 10 seasons in the NFL. He spent last year with the Cleveland Browns. He played in 12 games, 7 starts. He completed 61.1% of his passes for 2,100 plus yards, 7.2 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 12 picks. So, I mean, the guy had a 4-touchdown game against Denver, but he also threw 3 picks. Threw for almost 500 yards in that game. 34 of 58 for 497 and 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And that is a busy day at the office. Against Kansas City, he was 16 of 25 for 146 yards, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. Against the Saints, he had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Against the Chargers, he had a touchdown and 3 interceptions. Against the Ravens, he had 3 touchdowns, threw for 334 yards, 27 of 41. So he had some good days. He threw for 395. He threw for 334. He threw for 497. So he's had some big days, but 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Completed 61% of his passes, which is not very good. Not very good. So there you go. Jameis Winston. I mean, to me, this is interesting. Jameis Winston, if you catch him on the right day, looks pretty good. He's definitely got size. He's definitely got stature. He's definitely got ability. It's interesting. If you put Jameis Winston in this offense and protected him, who knows? Maybe he could win some games. I like him more than I like Dobbs. I like him more than I like Brandon Allen. That's for sure. So that was interesting. There's also Dre Greenlaw is still on the market. He's yet to sign. Greenlaw, according to Mike Silver, the Falcons, Texans, and Broncos are all showing interest in Dre Greenlaw. The Titans and the Cowboys reportedly have preliminary interest in Greenlaw, according to Josina Anderson. So Titans, Cowboys, Falcons, Texans, Broncos. I've heard Rams. Sounds like Dre Greenlaw's got a pretty burgeoning market. The Broncos signed Talanoa Hufanga today. He gets a 3-year contract worth $45 million, $20 million guaranteed at signing. You know, Hufanga was ranked 131st out of 170 strong safeties in pass coverage. He was 36th in run defense. His PFF run defense grade was good, 36th. But he struggled in pass defense. He had a 13% missed tackle rate, which is way too high. And he's not a good coverage player. And you have Malik Mustafa, and he's your starting strong safety. And so Hufanga moves on. He goes to Denver. I think that's pretty much it for the moves of the day, except for the latest one that came down just a minute ago, which is Aaron Banks is expected to sign with the Packers, and it's going to be a 4-year deal for $77 million. So, basically the long and the short of it is today, the Niners lose Hufanga. They're going to lose Mooney Ward. They lose Jalen Moore. They lose Aaron Banks. It's, they've lost some guys for sure. They lose Elijah Mitchell, Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, and probably going to wind up losing Greenlaw. They're going to lose Mooney Ward. They've signed Farrell, a blocking tight end, and they're interested in Jameis Winston as a backup quarterback to Brock Purdy. So there you go. You are fully caught up on day one of free agency. You knew Aaron Banks was going to get paid, but 4 years, $77 million. Wow. Sure enough, $18 million a year roughly for Aaron Banks. So none of these are too big of a surprise. I guess the biggest surprise is Jameis Winston. the Niners have interest in Jameis Winston. So, what do you think of Winston? Personally, it's an interesting name. It's a better name than what they had last year because I think he could actually start and win some games. But it's also not anybody who's going to really threaten Brock Purdy. It's like if you sign Zach Wilson, if you sign Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, somebody like that, they potentially are a threat to Brock Purdy. I don't think Winston is a threat to Brock Purdy, but he's also better than what they had a year ago. So overall, I would say I kind of like that name. It's kind of an intriguing name to me. All right, so we'll welcome in Kev. We'll see what Kev's thoughts are on free agency here. But yeah, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California, and of course Mancini's. Thanks to Mancini's and Pig and a Pickle for being the title thanks to Mancini's and thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the show. Kev, what'd you think? Niners have lost Banks, they've lost Moore, they've lost Mitchell, they've lost Hufanga. It sounds like they're on the verge of losing Greenlaw. They added a blocking tight end, and they may have had Jameis Winston as
None of this has been really much of a surprise, I'd say. I think we could have all expected these guys, especially with the reports in the last few days, to kind of be priced out of the Niners market. It's funny how the 49ers cash issue came up right before free agency. It was almost like it was letting everyone know, hey, we're not about to spend a ton of money this free agency. My biggest takeaway from free agency at large has just been, look at the money that's coming off the books right now, or not off the books. Like, look at the money that's being thrown at these prospects. No one is cheap. I mean, I want to get into Luke Farrell, Talanoa Hufanga, and Aaron Banks, but the Jalen Moore contract was like the start of free agency this morning, and I was shocked. I mean, you're giving $30 million to Jalen Moore, the backup tackle behind Colt McKivitz. Colt McKivitz is making $4.6 million. You're going to give Jalen Moore $15 million annually. That's crazy. I mean, what has he proven? He's a solid player. I mean, he projects well, but that's a crazy amount of money for a guy that. What has he proven? I mean, tell me what has he proven? He filled in for Trent Williams as a swing tackle and did all right, and now he's He's a top 30 tackle in the NFL. That's crazy.
I know. No, he's getting a ton of money, and it just kind of goes to show that if you're healthy and you can play offensive tackle at all, and you can grade out even decently, you hang around. If it's like there's not that many guys who have that kind of big body that can play that spot. But yeah, I mean, this guy never really played more than 2 or 3 games in a row.
He's projected to get. I mean, if he gets all the money on his deal, it's going to be $15 million APY average per year. Colton McKivitz got $17 million, or not Colton McKivitz. Mike McGlinchey got $17.5 million. And we're talking about a guy that was drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft, was a blue chip prospect, and played for all the shit we give McGlinchey. He's a little bit more of a hot commodity in terms of just size and athleticism. Like, I know he's not perfect, but Jalen Moore is kind of in the same range as Mike McGlinchey now. Like, I just don't see it. Maybe the Chiefs scouting department loves Jalen Moore, and we just don't know that yet. But
he had some good stats.
Yeah, that was surprising.
He had some good stats. He's healthy, and that's really it. He had some decent stats, and he's healthy. I mean, this is kind of another statement of why the Niners probably should really think long and hard about, even though they like to draft defensive linemen early, they may want to think about drafting some offensive linemen early, just because, I mean, Jalen Moore, I mean, the Titans gave Dan Moore from the Steelers big money. He didn't even have a great year. Jalen Moore played a few games and he got huge money, $30 million guaranteed. So, it's maybe the Niners ought to go with an Armand Membu at 11. Maybe they ought to go with Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell or Josh Simmons or one of these guys, just simply because offensive linemen are at such a premium. It also kind of shows too that, in the NFL, it's like when you get an offensive lineman, it's like there's a developmental period there. You don't just step right into the NFL and do awesome. Dom Pooney did, but for every Dom Pooney, there's 25 guys who struggle. And so it's like really what you're looking for is a guy like Jalen Moore. He's a 5th-round pick. He's got NFL size. He's been coached up. He's gone through the rigors of being a backup, and now you sign him. But it's like, that the point is just that a lot of times the rookie offensive linemen don't grade out very highly, and so teams are more willing to throw bigger money at established veteran free agent offensive linemen. And in this case, I mean, Drew Dahlman gets $28 million guaranteed. He's good, but I don't think he's spectacular. Jalen Moore didn't even start much of the year. Probably wouldn't have started if there weren't injuries, and yet he's getting $30 million guaranteed. He's had 12 starts over 4 seasons. 12 starts. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been shocking. I mean, I'm going to share the screen here. These are since we're on the topic of offensive linemen, this is the rankings for offensive guards average contract value. You got Trey Smith 1, Landon Dickerson 2, Chris Lindstrom 3, Quentin Nelson and Robert Hunt tied for 4th, and then 6th is Aaron Banks, $19.25 million over 4 years for Aaron Banks. I mean, Aaron Banks is a solid player. Don't get me wrong. Drafted him in the 2nd round. Notre Dame, they produce good talent. Banks has the body. He's the offensive lineman build. But I don't know how you can make this guy I just don't see how he's worth that much money. I mean, it's great for Banks. He's a great guy. But $19.25 million APY and a 4-year deal with the value also being, $77 million. Top 6th overall among all guards. It just seems like an overpay.
Well, to me, it's amazing too, because I watch every single game. The game that I saw that made me go, "Uh-oh, you can't pay this guy," was the Green Bay game. When Green Bay's defensive backup tackle, Carl Brooks, just dominated Banks and beat him with quickness, beat him with power. And it's like their backup defensive tackle burned Banks with quickness and power. And yet they watched that film and were like, we need to pay that guard millions and millions of dollars. I mean, it's wild. It kind of goes to show that, it's like teams have their grades in the draft. They grade guys out. And then, a lot of times they hold to their draft grade. So a bunch of people had him coming out of Notre Dame as a highly rated guy. And, so they signed him. But I mean,
that
really
game that
amazing.
you're talking about was his 2nd worst game graded by PFF in pass blocking. He allowed 2 hits on the quarterback, 2 pressures, 27 snaps. I mean, yeah, not a great game from Banks. I mean, yeah, exactly. Banks is a fine player. But this is just like, there is no world where if the Niners signed Banks to this contract, I would be saying, great deal, great. Like, I know that sometimes it's like, oh, after the Niners do something, you want to say why it might be good or might not be good. But giving Aaron Banks, I don't even know what you'd call this, like almost near top of the market money after what he's done. I just don't see the logic behind that. You're projecting a lot, like similar to Jalen Moore. The amount of money you're giving him is like projecting that he's going to become better than he already is, which is just not the way you want to go. I just don't think that's the way you want to do free agency. And that's why people overpay, man. It's like, if the draft is like buying like a $1 scratcher and you're like hoping to get like $20. The free agency is like playing high stakes poker where it's like, it's all or nothing. Like you're paying a ton of money for a player. And if it doesn't work out, you're just screwed. I mean, you're not actually screwed. It's like the Javon Hargrave where you're paying a guy $40 million and or 80, whatever his contract was. And then if he doesn't produce, it's like, that's a real detriment to your team. So Aaron Banks, who's had the knee injury, he's had knee injuries in the past. He's played a lot, most of the games, but he has had knee injuries. If that somehow gets worse and you're just paying an offensive lineman $70 to $80 million to sit on the injured reserve, I mean, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for the Packers.
One note coming down as we speak here. Patrick Taylor has re-signed with the 49ers.
I saw that.
So Patrick Taylor, the backup running back, stays with the Niners. And let's see, I don't have the terms. Tom Pelissaro reporting reporting it. But yeah,
I'll pull it up.
yeah, it looks like he's back. So I mean, he's all right. I mean, I have nothing terrible, nothing great. He's okay. I mean, I thought he actually looked pretty good when he got in there last year. So not the worst re-signing there, Patrick Taylor. But we'll see.
1-year extension. There's no details on it right now. Just 1-year extension.
Yeah. So Taylor's back. So they have re-signed one of their free agents. But overall, I would say, nothing I didn't expect today. I mean, I expected all these guys to leave. I guess the one shocker is that maybe Jameis Winston is going to be their backup quarterback, but I kind of like that idea. It's not the worst idea. He's got talent. He's got ability. He's better. I think you can win some games with Jameis Winston. He's not afraid. He's been around.
Since the Niners signed Luke, I thought I'm going to pull this up. So Luke Farrell, this is, I don't know if you can see that well because it's pretty big or it's pretty small. But Luke Farrell right here, third-ranked pass blocker among tight ends last season with a minimum of 100 snaps. So he's an elite. An elite pass blocker. He's an elite pass blocker. This is up with Connor Hayward, Michael Pruitt, Ben Sinnott. That's your guy from the Commanders. Conklin. I mean, he's up there with some of the better pass blocking tight ends in the league. So that's good. He's kind of like what you wanted Charlie Warner to be on your team, I guess. Charlie Warner might have been a better run blocker, but they're replacing Saubert, who made $1.2 million last year. And they are giving him a lot of money. I mean, what was the deal again? He ranks 19th in tight end APY and 20th in total guarantee. So it's not a cheap deal, but a solid blocker.
It's 11 million guaranteed. It's 3 years, 20 million, 20.2 million, 11 million guaranteed for Luke Farrell. So I mean, he's a blocking tight end. Hopefully he's a good one. And he will enable, the 49ers to use George Kittle more as a receiver. It's an incredible year for tight ends. In fact, I was looking at the top tight ends in the market, in the draft, I should say. And I'll tell you, there's a couple tight ends who are not even going to be drafted that are really, really intriguing prospects. Malik Carr from Houston started at Michigan State. He's 6'5", 265, redshirt senior, pretty solid blocker. And then Rivaldo Fairweather, who the Niners have met with, 6'3", about 250-pound tight end. Didn't even play football till his junior year in high school, but he's got like an 85-inch wingspan. He's super athletic, can catch the ball, really loves football, is working hard at it. To me, you could get guys like Malik Carr and Rivaldo Fairweather as undrafted players. They're probably not going to go in any round. So I mean, those are and there's a whole slew of good tight ends that will be drafted. But it's a good year. It's a good year for tight ends. So maybe the Niners can get somebody after the draft. And
I'm sharing the screen on this is average value, contract average value for Luke Farrell. It says it's 6.75 million. There might be an update to his contract, but that puts him right above Zach Ertz and Juwan Johnson, Noah Gray, and Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble was a name that we talked about in free agency as a blocking
tight end. He re-signed.
Yeah.
He re-signed with Carolina.
Right. But I'm saying, similar type of player, I guess you could say.
Well, yeah. I think Tremble is way better mover. I mean, he can play fullback, he can move, he can catch. But he was a backup tight end and a blocking tight end. I mean, he's a little bit of everything. I think Tremble's better, actually, to be honest.
I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, and I don't think this is a bad deal for the 49ers. You're getting you're getting a younger tight end, but they did pay a premium for him. They didn't get a deal. This wasn't a snag of a deal. Unless Farrell turns out to be an amazing player, I think it is a little expensive. But
I don't know if I would agree with this one either. Big Bori says, definitely not getting Tyler Warren now. I don't know. This doesn't preclude that. This is just a blocking tight end. This is just a backup. If they want they may look at their situation. They probably have other needs that are more pressing than tight end. And I don't know that Tyler Warren is even going to fall to the Niners at 11, to be completely honest. I think there's a chance he goes in front of them. But if they really love him, they can, I don't.
Well,
getting this guy as a blocking tight end, you're going to need 3 tight ends. And who else do they have? They have Tongas, they have Mason Pline, they have Braden Willis, but none of those guys are established. So if they like a tight end in this draft, I don't think what they've done thus far precludes them from going after him.
Well, what I will say is, I don't know. The contract value says otherwise, though. I mean, I don't think that they would not draft Tyler Warren if they want Tyler Warren. But, like, Charlie Warner, when they let him walk, got paid $4 million annually for $12 million. This is more than that. So, like, if they wanted Farrell to be their third tight end, they're paying him a lot of money to sit behind Kittle and Warren. Like, that's I can't, for the amount of money that they're paying him, I can't see him being like a third string tight end unless they're going to run 3 tight end sets a lot.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. He hasn't done much, so if he's your number 2 tight end, you're not very good. I mean, I'll just say that right now. But
how many teams are paying $20 million for the third string tight end? That's not a lot of teams.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you're probably right. Maybe does preclude them from getting a good tight end. Russell Wilson to maybe the Titans. That's out there as well. Steelers and Giants both have interest, but Russell may go to the Titans. So interesting day overall in day 1 of free agency.
Can I add one last thing though?
Yeah.
Last thing on the Hufanga, because I know you mentioned that earlier. He obviously gets a $45 million deal. That ranks 12th among safeties in total value, 9th in APY at $15 million, and 12th in total guarantees, getting $20 million. So obviously the Broncos see Hufanga as a talent, as a very talented safety. I'm not terribly upset about this. I think Talanoa Hufanga, like Banks, great guy. You know, you love having him on the team. He has the hair. He makes the big hits. He makes big plays, but it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money when it's just going to get too expensive. I can just see why that's too expensive. The Broncos have a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. The Niners are getting ready to pay Brock Purdy. It's a lot of money to pay for a guy that honestly did not play amazing last year. I don't think. Like, if you
he hasn't played more than a few games without getting hurt in a while. That's not a good investment. Yeah. It's not a good investment to invest in
He's a good run
safety who can't play the pass in a passing league. He's totally overrated. He's a great guy, but he's one of the most overrated players in all of football because people think that he's Polamalu, and he's not. Polamalu ran 4.3 and was an incredible all-around player. This guy is almost strengthless. He falls off blocks in the run game. He's not a good coverage player. He's the third best strong safety they had, in my opinion. So I have no problem with him going. I liked him as a guy. I just didn't like him much as a player. The more you look at him, the more you see why he.
The way I would describe Hufanga would be like the way I envision, like the way he plays to me is like a Pro Bowl or All Pro safety that is in their last year before retirement. Like, they have the head smarts and headiness to know what's going to happen before the play. They've seen it all. They know where to be at the right time, but just athletically not up to speed with NFL standards. Like, Will was not strong enough, not big enough, not fast enough, like, to really be a great safety. And I think that sounds kind of disrespectful to Hufanga because Hufanga has played. He's a Pro Bowl safety. He's a Pro Bowl safety. It's just you're paying him to be one of the best safeties now in the league. And if you're about to pay your quarterback a bunch of money, you can't really afford to not have production for money.
He's just not worth it. I mean, he's not a good coverage player, and he's underpowered he doesn't really blow you up. He's not the kind of hitter that's going to really intimidate. So he's good at attacking the mesh point in the run game if he's allowed to hover close to the line of scrimmage. But if you're playing any kind of two safety look and he's got to cover deep middle, no, can't do that. And if he's really got to stand up against the run, no, he falls off some blocks. So he's like one of those guys that he looks the part and he's smart. He's like a coach on the field. He knows where to go. It's just that he's underpowered in the run game and he's underquicked in the pass game, and he's just not quite what you're looking for.
I just think that there has to be two standards you hold to players too. You got to hold them to a certain standard on the rookie deal, and then you got to hold them to a new standard when they get their real money contract. So it's like Jair Brown right now. It's like, yeah, he makes mistakes, but he's a solid safety, especially at the dollar price that he's getting. At the contract on his rookie deal. Once you start paying Talanoa Hufanga, that's when it's like some of these faults that you have, like we just can't afford to have a player like this who's making these mistakes or is a weakness in coverage when we're paying you $45 million and making you a top 15 safety in the league. It's just, those are the things that I would have a problem with. So I'm okay with them letting Hufanga walk.
Eric says, "What up, Krug? Love your shows, man, and I feel that I'm better prepared for the draft by listening to you. Do you think we still draft a tight end?" Oh, I definitely do. I definitely think they'll draft a tight end. As far as what round, I mean, it's hard to say. As I said, I love some of the undrafted, some of the late round guys like Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. He's going to be a day 3 guy. I really like him a lot. I mean, he's started at Yale, pretty athletic, pretty wide, broad tight end. Really like him. He's going on day 3. Carter Runyon from Towson, small school in Maryland. Really like him. He's going on day 3. Rivaldo Fairweather from Auburn, long-armed, raw tight end. Love him. He's probably going on day 3 or maybe undrafted. Malik Carr, the former Michigan State tight end at Houston. He's probably going to be an undrafted guy. So yeah, I mean those are the late tight ends. There's Jalen Conyers is one of my favorites from Texas Tech. Really like him. Urasek from Stanford, who transferred to Georgia. Really like Urasek. Aronde Gadsden from Syracuse is kind of more of like a jumbo receiver. Love him. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. He's got a knee injury, but you gotta check that out. But he's tremendous. Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green's really special. So, and there's other guys than that: Arroyo, Helm, Mason Taylor, Loveland, Tyler Warren. So it's a really good tight end draft for sure. The fact that the Niners went for this blocking tight end just shows that they really like this piece to the puzzle and feel like he's a really developed blocker. But I do think they'll draft a tight end, or get one after the draft. I think they'll add one in this draft cycle. It's a really good cycle for tight ends for sure.
Let me pull up the depth chart. This is their chart as of now. You got George Kittle, obviously gold standard there at tight end. Then you have Luke Farrell. Eric Saubert Green means he's an unrestricted free agent. Braden Willis, Jake Tongas. So you could fill a spot there. I mean, I think honestly, how I see this deal with Farrell is like the Niners.
Look at those guys. Tongas and Willis are receivers. And Pline's a receiver. So they've got 3 receiving tight ends, and they needed a blocking tight end. I think what Farrell's move guarantees is that Saubert's gone. Yeah.
But Saubert, like I'm saying, Saubert was on a 1 year, around $1 million contract. So you're spending exponentially more money for Farrell. I think that has to mean something, unless they're just trying to spend a boatload at the tight end position for 3 tight ends. It's a lot of money to give a guy if he's going to be your third. I feel like this has to mean that they see potential in it, and it might be true. He's a Ohio State drafted only a few years ago. It's a projection, I guess.
I mean, you never know what you're going to get at any of these guys. We got this one from All-Star Luna. He says, thought the draft was heavy in tight ends. It is. Mark Graves says, all these losses, are they definitely trading back? I think they should trade back. I think the smart play is to trade back. But I think they could stay where they're at and let Mason Graham fall in their laps. I think that could happen. Otherwise, I do think they'll trade back. I think they'll probably go defensive tackle in the first round. That'd be my guess. Rodrigo Buelna says bad signing and waste of cap money on a mid-blocking tight end. Okay. AJ says Texans trading Tunsil to the Commanders. Is that true? That would be a huge get for the Commanders.
Yes, I'll pull that up right now.
Laramie Tunsil?
That was a blockbuster trade. Yeah, traded to the Commanders. I'll pull it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's big. For what?
Huge trade. The Raiders got Jeremy Chin. Sorry. Here it is. Here are the contract terms. Let me pull it up. It is the Commanders get Laramie Tunsil and a 4th-round pick. The Texans get a 2025 third, a 2025 7th, a 2026 6th round, a 2026 4th rounder.
For 4 picks, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's they exchanged 4th-round picks, and then they basically got a 3rd, a 7th, and a 2nd for Laramie Tunsil. Hey man, the Commanders have something going there. They got a quarterback. I mean, yeah, they got a quarterback that they trust. Now they're willing to spend. They were the only team I'd say that's done free agency right in the last few years. They got a bunch of good players for cheap somehow, and they got better drafting a new quarterback, and now they can spend the big bucks and actually make it worth it.
God, Tunsil's a top tackle. Boogie 11 says trade back Banks Simmons. Trade back Banks Simmons.
Kelvin Banks
or
Josh
Simmons. Move up early in the 2nd for what? Trade back with Banks, get Banks or Simmons. We'll see. It's all kind of projectable at this point. Simmons and Banks could go behind them. Simmons and Banks could go in the top 10. So, I hear you, but I think it's still a little early on the projections as far as who's going where. Joe Boyd with a Farrell sucks. There you go. Law of all. Our team stinks. Trey Lance. 49ers closed their own Super Bowl window.
I saw Mike Silver tweet out anyone who's talking about like their potential draft pick compensation and comp picks is just not doing good today. I don't necessarily disagree. The Niners are going to get some good draft comp from these signings, and I think these signings are overpriced. So I mean, it's a win-win, I guess.
Well, you're always going to overpay in free agency. If you really need to lean on free agency, you're probably not doing that well. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. You should only look at free agency to add a piece or two. You can't rebuild through free agency most of the time. At least in the tampering window when you're paying the guys like the big market guys.
Ahmad Z, Niners will be trash next season. Come on Friday. Parag has to go. His style is too slow for new NFL age and negotiations.
How could you possibly know that? How could you possibly know that?
Well, he's just saying
because the length of the deal.
No, I think he's talking about the fact that
the holdouts and stuff.
Well, no, that the guys didn't get signed on time so far. We got this going. Spaghetti 49 trade Brock for a 1st-round pick. He said it again. Trade Brock for a 1st-round pick. I don't think Brock's going to be traded, but you never know. I mean, they're hitting a reset here. Overall, I would say I'd give the Niners probably a solid C+ today. Why would I say C+? Well, I expected all these guys to leave in free agency. It wasn't like, and at least they're showing some movement as far as, some creativity as far as that second quarterback. Jameis, I think, is a pretty good name. And then a blocking tight end. I mean, bottom line is you need another real tight end who can block and catch. But until you get that blocking tight end, I mean, you're probably gonna lose Saubert and everybody else on your roster at tight end outside of Kittle is a receiver only. So you do need a blocker.
Yeah.
I thought they paid kind of too much for it, but
They
we'll
must
see.
see
We'll
more,
how good-
something more in him. To me, the shockers of the day, and I've already said this, is Banks and Jalen Moore. Just getting the amount of money that they're getting, it's
especially
ridiculous.
Jalen Moore. I mean, Banks started. Banks was a second round pick who started. Jalen Moore was a 5th round pick who's got 14 starts in 4 years.
No, I know. I tweeted this out. I tweeted it.
That's
I
crazy.
tweeted this out. I was like, it's insane when you look at Colt McKivitz deal, because Colt McKivitz last year signed a 2-year extension for $4.6 million. $4.6 million extension. And that extension was to be the starting right tackle. Jalen Moore gets a 2-year, $30 million deal, and he was the backup to Colt McKivitz last year. I mean, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. And then Banks being paid like an all-pro tackle or something, or an all-pro guard or something, is just another like solid player. But what are we doing here? I mean, I can justify the Hufanga deal. He was an all-pro at one point. If you're paying him to be like, hey, you were an all-pro, we think you're an all-pro, we think you should be paid like one. If that's your mindset, that's fine. What has Banks done? What has Banks done to deserve to be up there with Quentin Nelson and the other highest paid guys?
Well, he's a youngish free agent who is kind of healthy. My concern with Banks is the concussions. Now, he didn't have any this year, but to me, he's had multiple concussions, and that's a concern. That to me is a concern. When you're talking about paying a guy long term, that's a concern. The Raiders have signed Jeremy Chin. The Chargers have signed Dante Jackson. There's somebody in the chat who says Greenlaw to the Broncos. Is that? I'm looking for that. Did you see that anywhere, Kev?
Yeah, I'll pull it up. If that's the case, then
I did not see Greenlaw to the Broncos. Dante Jackson gets a 2-year deal for $13 million to go to the Chargers, but I didn't see the. Do you see anything?
Yeah, I mean, Greenlaw's probably going to get more money than we expected. I think someone said the Derek Barnes contract, right? That was yesterday from Pelissero, which was like, I think, $7 million a year. It was like $25.5 million a year over 3 years. If that's the case, I'd pay Greenlaw. He's 27. I know he had the ACL, but you saw the impact of Greenlaw. If your doctors are telling you that, or not the ACL, the Achilles, I apologize. If your doctors are saying that he's good to go with modern medicine now, I would pay the guy. But yeah, I mean, he's probably going to command more than what was reported yesterday, just based on how much money's going out today. Like a lot of these big money deals are being solidified today. I wonder if later in the week we're going to see more down to earth contracts.
We got a couple more supers here. I'm going to be streaming at 4:00 today with Grant Cohn, and then on both of our channels. And then at 6:00 tonight, you can catch me on Niners Nightly. We'll do a full hour of your phone calls on the radio, talking about all the news of the day with the Niners. San Fran 49 says Farrell's a great blocker for the amount we paid him I'm not sure, but like you guys said, players are going to be overpaid. I mean, you're not getting a deal on day one of free agency. You're just not. Charlie Higgs says Farrell was the number 2 graded blocking tight end in 2024. Yeah, no, there's no question. He's a good blocking tight end, but they gave him $11 million guarantee. That does seem a little pricey.
He has to be that player still. Like if he continues to be that good of a blocker with that many snaps, then it's probably going to be worth it. But yeah, I mean, that you just don't give that kind of money to. I mean, like I said, they paid Saubert $1 million last year, so they're 7xing that, 6xing that this year with Farrell. So he's gonna play. You can bet on that. He's gonna play.
Would you rather pay Greenlaw and have him break down on you? Would you rather save the money and go young at linebacker? There's, the only reason I bring this up is that, when I went through the draft, and I've looked at the draft every number of ways, to me, the area that just is screaming value is day 3 linebackers. and there's a bunch in this draft. Carson Bruner, Casey Osai, Chandler Martin, David Benda, Nick Martin, Eugene Asante. I mean, there's just a lot of these Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon. There's just a bunch of these stacked backers, second level defenders, Barrett Carter, Cody Simon, Kari Coleman. I mean, there's just a bunch of them. Kane Madrano. I mentioned David Benda. There's Jackson Woodard. There's just a bunch of like undersized second level defenders, linebackers. And as much as I love Greenlaw, I might want to just trade back and draft 3 or 4 inside linebackers on day 3 of the draft and just go young. Just go young at the position.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you can draft a player, if you can draft a good linebacker, do it. We did our mock draft the other day, and you're telling me that the theme behind the mock draft is that you're losing every single unrestricted free agent in free agency. You're not re-signing any of them. And if that's the case, if Dre Greenlaw's gone, I think the Niners need to get serious at linebacker, because even though D. Winters is a nice player, he's not the one. Like he's a good special teamer. I don't think he's your number 2 next to Fred Warner on an elite defense. He's just not that player yet. I think you need to actually get a player. That's why I drafted Jahad Campbell. I think he's a very good linebacker. Jalen Walker is another great linebacker. So they need to do something. Because Campbell wasn't it. And you saw what in the wide 9 system, or in the wide 9 front, you see what a bad linebacker does to the run defense, and it's just not good.
You got to have fast guys on that second level. There's no question. I think the game plan, if I were Robert Saleh, is get some big boys up front that will cover up these second level linebackers, and get 2 or 3 of these undersized, fast, instinctive linebackers that are so valuable, and try to build up your front 7 with that size up front, speed on the second level. Greg Arjasi says we lose Greenlaw, it's over next year. Bull crap. I'm not sure. What's he saying there, Kev? Is he saying that it's bull crap that it's over next year, or is he saying
he's saying if they lose Greenlaw, it's over. Like they're not going to win.
Yeah. No, I understand that thinking.
If they don't have a good inside linebacker, then yeah, they're not going to have a good defense. I mean, like I was saying, the defensive tackles are important, but the inside linebackers are important, because if you're spreading yourself out thin on the wide 9, which is good for pass rush, they're going to run up the gut. And if you don't have good inside linebackers, then you're going to run for 6 and 7 instead of 2 and 3. And that's the difference.
You don't need these big, thick, 260-pound guys anymore. They can be 220, but you need a bunch of them, and you got to have guys who can run on that second level. All right, that's going to do it for us. Once again, check me out at 4 o'clock with Grant Cohn on his channel. Check me out at 6 o'clock on KMBR for Niners Nightly. Kev, you got a final thought before we bolt for the door?
Shout out Mancini's. Click the link in the description if you want a discount using code KRUEG, KRUEG, 10% off your mattress. Check us out on all the audio platforms, all the social medias. Check out our merch and subscribe to the Krug Show.
And for Kev, I'm Larry. Have a great rest of your Monday. Enjoy some of this outstanding weather. Hopefully the Niners do something impactful. Have a great day. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.